Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. I'm your host, Jill L. Ferguson, and today is my first guest from the Philippines. So I'm really excited about that. Fiona Kesby is originally from Brisbane, right? But you've been
Correct.
living in the Philippines since, I believe, 2015-ish. You moved your
That
kids
is
there?
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was coming for 12 months to 2 years and ended up staying, and then ended up in Bali for a few years, and then back in the Philippines.
So what brought you, had you been to the Philippines before you moved?
Never been to the Philippines. As a child, my brother and I, we travelled quite a bit through Southeast Asia, but I'd never been to the Philippines. And Matt founded GoVA, Go Virtual Assistants, which was the original name of the business. We're now GoTeam, and so he started the business in the Philippines, and then asked me if I wanted to come and work with him again. So previously I had bought a business off him. We had a software startup. And then he said, I've got this idea. And I said, I think it's fabulous. And, do you want to work together? And I said, I'd love to, but I've got a few conditions. I said, I was a single mom at the time, 2 young daughters. I said, I only want to work from home. I only want part-time, and I just want to do sales, nothing else. So he kept saying yes to me. So
Wow.
my joke is,
Yeah.
my joke is he's better at sales than me, because within 6 months I was actually living in the Philippines, in the office, and doing a little bit more than sales.
And probably working full-time, not part-time.
And working full-time and not part-time, yes. Yeah.
Wow. So you said you traveled through Southeast Asia as kids. Why? Why that?
So my mum was originally early on in her career, she was a travel agent.
Okay.
And in the 60s, she traveled solo to Canada and Europe, which, if you think back then, that was a pretty big thing as a female to travel solo. So she just had this love for travel and adventure. And, she saved up really hard during the year. It was a very simple life. And then she would take us out of school for a couple of weeks at the end and tell us that we would learn more traveling than in the classroom. And so every year around Christmas time, we would travel to Southeast Asia, to the US. And it was a great adventure. And I think that's where it's sort of that love for other countries, stepping outside your comfort zone as well. To move to another country is a big step.
And do you speak the language there? No.
No, I don't.
You don't.
There's a few little words. We're in the office because we supply global team members to our clients in the US and to Australia. And so in the Philippines, English is the main language. And that's the language that that we use in the office as well. So language skills is not one of my strengths. Just a couple of words. Yeah.
And how old were your daughters when you moved?
They were 11 and 12.
Okay. And were they excited for the adventure, or were they like, we want to be with our friends and what are you doing to us?
Yeah. So I think they were just at the right age. So they were at the age that they thought it was this big adventure. And they, I had said to them, this is, let's give it 12 months, first of all. And then from the 12 months, they both really enjoyed living in Southeast Asia, living in the Philippines. They often said that their new friends at school were the kindest friends that they'd ever had. So that was kind of a tribute to the Filipino values as well. And it gave me the opportunity to be able to work and be a mum and find that quality time too. So that's something that I've really appreciated about the opportunity living here and raising them.
So during the time you've been there, which is now, well, mostly, right, been there, has been 11 years.
Yes, yeah.
And you've grown the company substantially in that time, is my understanding, right?
Yes, when I first arrived in 2015, we were about 20 team members, and now we're 1,200.
Wow. Yeah, and I was reading something, I think it was on the Forbes Council, or maybe it was on Crunchbase, and it said that in 2020 you had 400 team members. So that's even like over thousands. That's a lot of growth for, yeah.
Yes, and 2020, because that was the year of COVID.
Yeah.
And so we actually lost 50% of our business overnight, like a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But we worked, Matt and I worked 7 days a week to rebuild. And we ended up finishing off that year with a higher revenue, higher team count than from the start of the year after losing 50%. So that was a massive achievement.
Yeah. That's really, and what was different about did the Philippines do anything different during COVID than the rest of the world? I mean, because it got really publicized about the lockdowns in the US and the lockdowns in Australia and New Zealand, right? But we didn't get, and we heard a lot about China because,
Yes, yeah. So in Cebu City, where we were based, we had the lockdowns as well. Mm-hmm. If you were under 21 or over 60, you weren't actually allowed to leave your home. So it was super strict. That was for about nearly 12 months, and they had online schooling for 3 years. So I said to my daughters, they brought the military tanks came out on the street. At that point, I said, it's time to take you back to Australia. But they said, look, we love it here in the Philippines. And my oldest daughter said, what about Bali? And so I said, hey, that's actually a great idea. And so we ended up in Bali. My youngest daughter then finished off year 11 and 12 at international school there. It was closer to the Philippines. Australia was super strict. If I had gone back there, you had to apply for exit visas. So it would have made it more difficult for me to go back and forth to the Philippines. So Bella had she said the best 2 years of her life doing schooling in Bali.
Nice. So do you right now you have work permits to work there, or did you apply for dual citizenship?
Oh, work permits. So we have so no dual citizenship, but yes, the right to work.
Okay. Yeah. And why the Philippines, since you hadn't been there before, other than Matt being there?
Yeah, great question. So back in 2007, we had a software startup, mm-hmm. and we actually had remote workers in Pakistan.
Okay.
And a lot of freelancers, mm-hmm. and we did everything wrong. Even with my background in recruitment, we did everything wrong. And all those experiences. After that business, Matt went to work with Franklin Covey. I went back to recruitment. When Matt was at Franklin Covey, he was a consultant. He needed some help, admin support help. So he went back online and thought, I'm going to look for someone else remotely. We'll give this another go. And he found Ian Ramos, who was based in the Philippines. And the great thing about the Philippines is English. So English is a national language. Mm-hmm. And it works so well, Ian, working with Matt, that was when Matt said, I'd love to be able to support SMEs, mm-hmm. that they can have the help like the larger companies have, like going to companies like Accenture, but without the big price tags, and not have to go through all of the challenges that we faced when we first used a remote team there. So that's how GoTeam got started and how the Philippines came about. It's a country that has been supporting the outsourcing industry for many decades now. So they operate 24 hours a day. So supporting, both the US and Australia and other countries around the world.
So you had said that to me, that your company runs 24 hours a day, right?
Yes.
So what does that mean? Does that mean your employees have like normal 8-hour shifts, or do they work 4 10s, or is it not a 40-hour work week?
So we have 9-hour shifts over 5 days, and everyone has a 1-hour meal break, and then there's a break. I call it a morning tea and afternoon break. That's probably very Australian terms as well. So yeah, everyone has a shift that they work.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of assistance and people do you provide to companies?
This is one of my favorite questions. So anything that can be done behind a computer that doesn't require someone to be face to face, we can find the talent in the Philippines. Often the Philippines is thought of as, general virtual assistants, admin, customer service, and there's actually a incredible pool of talent. So we have everything from, if we're helping a construction company, we have estimators and drafters. If it's the finance department, we go all the way up to CPA qualified accountants, even from the big four. And it's all industries as well. We help law firms, medical practices. It is actually amazing the support that can be found.
So a lot of that sounds to me like a lot of the people would have to be up on like American medical coding or Canadian medical coding, or do you do even like fractional CFO kind of work too? Do you have people or not?
We don't.
Like that
no, we
level?
don't go up to. No, we don't go up to that level. Something like a CFO, I always say it's very strategic in nature, and it has nuances that that needs. That's like decades of working in an industry, and those types of roles are absolutely, they stay on shore, and it's all the support roles to support those leaders that you can find offshore. And so with our model, we allow our clients to interview and then select who's on their team. And so some clients, they'll get us to find people that already have that experience, and then others like to train from scratch.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So you're providing work to more than 1,000 people in the Philippines, right?
Yes.
And are all those 1,000 people in the city you're in, or are they all over the Philippines?
All over the Philippines. So we have some people that are based in our office in Cebu City, and then we have other teams that work remotely. So it's up to the client whether they want a remote team or whether they want a team in the office. It's the biggest question at the moment, isn't it? What's the best work environment?
Yeah. Well, and so I read somewhere that you have a little, I don't know whether I would call it a tagline, but GoTeam says it's AI powered outsourcing. So I want to know what that means to you.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the other thing that I saw was says that you guys are helping CEOs decode culture and AI to finally get outsourcing right. And I liked that, but I want you to talk a little bit about those two things.
Oh, wow. Oh, do we have enough time?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
So first of all, Jill, something that I think at the moment, it is the greatest time in history to be a leader. And the reason for that is, with AI, there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of fear about replacing jobs. But as a leader, this is the best time in history to actually double down and nurture the most important human skills. So Matt's written a book, Untangling AI, and he talks about the ACE framework, which is agility. So, that the ability to unlearn and relearn, articulate with specificity, critical thinking, creativity, and empathy. So they're all the skills that humans need to navigate the age of AI. And when I look at those, they're also the skills that you need to have good relationships as well, and to navigate life. And so, the foundation piece is, first of all, for us is finding people with those skill sets, and then actually nurturing those is super important for us. There is 100%, there's so much empathy around how you support people in this change. And, as a leader, it's our corporate social responsibility to create environments where we're creating legacies, where we are future-proofing the careers for our team, leaving that legacy for their family. Legacy is often spoken about as financial money that you leave your children, but I speak about legacy as leaders, that we're equipping our teams not just only with the technical skill sets, but the people skill sets that are needed. That AI, the missing bit from AI.
Yeah.
That we needed there. And so we've, at the moment, we're rolling out Claude subscriptions and OpenClaw. And so we're teaching our internal team, first of all, we're teaching them about those skill sets. And that's been, it's been really fabulous to see that, see teams go from that fear of AI to actually embracing it and having fun. I think that's really important too.
Yeah. I just was curious with the embracing it part. Do you see, because I see some of my friends doing this where they're almost developing a dependency on it. And I think it's like, remember you have a brain, you can do things yourself, right? By just being lazy in some cases, right? It's not perpetuating ourselves very much.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's like, I feel like I'm constantly campaigning, because you're constantly reminding people as well that the AI is not to replace you. It's just to be your thought partner. It's you create something, and then you use it to have, say, a few more ideas, and then you need to read it again. We've all seen where people have used AI just for even content, and then they publish it, and then you see the little lines at the bottom where the AI says, "Okay, would you like me to do this this next?" Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you can tell by the way that it's written that it was AI written, because it doesn't write in complete sentences when it makes a sentence, and it loves M dashes for some reason, and it doesn't use them correctly. And so it's like, even if you use it, it still needs to be edited by somebody who understands how to edit better than this. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Or if people have got it doing, working with skills or in term AI agents and doing repetitive tasks, and you're going off and doing something completely different. So you still got to treat it like a team member.
Yes.
And you still got to, train it and check its work. And we're talking about that, AI is not to replace people. It's to 10x the output. It's to give people better qualities of life. You have some team members that, they put in the extra hours, and you don't want them to burn out. So the AI can then help them replacing that time. So that's where that's where it becomes quite powerful, when you can have that mixture of your offshore team with AI supporting your onshore team, growing your business and creating more opportunities. It doesn't have to be about removing team members. And the clients that we're working with and consulting to, it's always been about, what are the areas that you're finding difficult to hire onshore, where you can't find the skill sets, and that you can support that with that team offshore. It's never about removing jobs.
In how do you approach because I've been approached by a lot of outsourcing companies that you can do this for pennies on the dollar, right? It's just like, that's so tacky to me. And that's not aligned with my values, right? I'm not in it to do it because it's cheap, right?
Cheap. Yeah.
And I've talked to, I needed a graphic designer for a specific project who was really good at illustration. And so I hired this woman, and I found out later that she was getting 40% of the money that I was paying to the company, right? And it ended up being something stupid like $3 an hour or $4 an hour. And I was like, no, this is not okay with me.
Right? Yeah, and it's not okay with us either. So that was something that got put in place right in the beginning, was transparency. So where we said, okay, here's our management fee. That's what we make our money off, our profit, because we've got to be profitable.
Oh, yeah.
And we we all, and right up front in the beginning, we say to the clients, and this is what the team members get paid. And then anytime you want to give them a salary increase or a bonus, 100% goes to them. Now, obviously, we have to take out money for taxes and government benefits, but we don't take any clips out of that, because otherwise people get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw in the industry when we first got started. And what happened to us as well is that you think that you're working with one person, but it's someone else that gets replaced. You don't actually see how much money goes to them. You don't get to see what their experience is.
Yeah.
And, it's that, that saying, you only get what you pay for. At the end of the day, if you're paying people too low, they can't then support themselves or their families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it as a human being who cares about other human beings, right? You're basically you're supporting what some of those companies come across as like a virtual sweatshop, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just like, no, that's not okay.
No.
And so it's really amazing to have a company like yours that is ethical, right? And that what kind of turnover do you have at your company? Do you have long-term employees?
Yeah, we have long-term employees. Our very first team member that we employed is still with us today. We're very proud of our turnover. It's very low compared to the industry. Yeah. It can vary from clients to clients, because that's also the challenge for us, because we've got our culture, and then there's the clients' client culture as well. Something I'm really proud of is we have been awarded 5 years in a row Great Place to Work, with over 90% employee engagement, which when you're getting to the size of the team that we have, that's something that I'm very grateful for our team of leaders in how they're supporting our clients' team members. And right from the very beginning, I had a question that I asked myself, and that was, how do we scale so that people feel like humans and not a payroll number? And that was the question that I still ask today. So 12 years on, I'm still asking that question. And that's how we make that decision. How do people feel seen and heard? It was actually 2019. I said to Matt, I'd like to bring in themes, and that we have a strategic theme each year. And Jill, you love this one. And the first theme I said to him, could we have the theme Act with Love? Because that's something, something that's not talked about in corporate. And I had an expat say to me, "You can't have that as a theme. I don't love my team." I was like, "What do you mean you don't love your team?" And anyway, and I ignored that. And you know what? We couldn't have picked a better theme going into 2020. When there was so much uncertainty, and how do humans act? We only act out of fear or love. Mm-hmm. And I got that from one of our clients, George from the Community Co. And throughout that period of time, every time I went to make a decision, I'd actually say to the team, am I acting out of fear or love? I think it's fear. Like, I'm giving you permission to push back on me if this is fear, and let's make that right decision there.
That's an example of exemplary leadership. That's phenomenal to be able to, well, number one, any leader that's willing to let their team say, hey, call you out on something, right? But just to say, like, because that also is more, let's make a group decision.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think as a leader, one of the most important values is humility, that understanding that, there can be 2 points of view, and then you use the information from both points of view to come up with that right choice that you're making. When I first got to the Philippines, Matt had already set up a few things that were a little bit different. And I then, the Philippines is very much like the US. So healthcare is insanely expensive. Mm-hmm. And the industry back then was, you started a job and you waited 6 months, and then you got your free medical care. And I noticed a lot of
time.
It is a long wait time, and I noticed a lot of team members were asking for cash advances. And so I went to the HR manager at the time and I said, why are we not paying it from day one? And she said, that's how it's done. And I said, well, do you mean as in we can't purchase we call it HMO in the Philippines, we can't purchase it? Or is that what the industry does? And she said, that's what the industry does. And in that moment, I said, and I still say this today, I said, well, we're going to set the industry standard. We're not going to follow it. Yeah. And we're going to do it not to compete, but to inspire. And so we were the first to bring in from day one. And so that was part of our attraction strategy and also our retention strategy. It was also just about being good human beings, like taking care of people. And it was really appreciated. And now when I drive through IT Park and I see all the banners up saying, HMO from day one, we made that change. And we did it in a time when I was constantly being told by other leaders that what we were doing was a waste of money, that the industry was churn and burn, and that you couldn't make that difference. And so it was a time where I was like, I smiled, I said, thank you for the input. And I thought, it's okay to be different.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to, and I always thought, you know what, if you take care of your people, they take care of your clients, then that attracts, and you share that story online, then that attracts other people. And it's that flywheel. It's a theory of abundance that in taking care of people.
Yeah. So speaking of the theory of abundance, okay, I think you moved to the Philippines, you're a single mom, you have a lifestyle that you travel a good bit, I understand.
Travel a lot, yes.
Because you and I met before we were both headed to the same conference in Miami.
That's right.
Last year.
Yeah. Long way from the Philippines.
Yeah. And you posted something recently on LinkedIn that talked about how you never really thought that you were going to find a partner that could deal with all of it, right? And to me, in some ways, that's not having an abundant mindset.
Exactly.
But things changed for you. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, first of all, why were you inspired to post that on LinkedIn, or tell us a little bit about what exactly you posted, and then why what you posted.
It was a very vulnerable post, and I have a very good friend that knows the story and really loves the story, and he said to me, you need to share it because people have got to understand more about you, and it inspires others as well. And I had come across a lot of other female leaders that, similar to myself, you have friends that say to you, hey, you'll never meet anyone because of your schedule, and you travel too much, and the time that you put into work. And that doubt creeps in. And I started, I was telling myself the same story. And then I had a bit of a mindset shift. I'd read a book years ago by a gentleman, Vishaan Lakhiani from Mind Valley, which is the code of the extraordinary mind. And, he talks about rules in society and how we're kind of like subconsciously programmed into thinking that you can only be happy in different ways. Yeah. And that book helped me in the beginning in the Philippines, going, I can do things differently and I can still create my own happiness. And then I think, once the girls were older and they're off to university, and it was like, okay, this is my time. And I was getting closer to 50, and it was, and then I saw another interview with Vishaan, and he was talking to a relationship coach, and it was about even viewing dating a little bit like a company. Like, you've got to set some metrics about it. You've got to get out there. And I actually, with a friend who was also looking for someone, and it was a topic amongst a group of us, that it's like, okay, I've got to get back out there, and I've got to do it as like a journey of getting to know myself again, and what am I looking for in a partner, and then first of all, I think one of the best tips someone gave me is like, am I that person? And changing that mindset from, I'd see a couple together going, oh, I'll never have that if I choose to have this lifestyle. Yeah. And then I flipped the switch to going, oh, that's my sign that I can have that. I can have that too. And putting it out there that this was my life, this is what I was looking for. And then I found Paul, and he was looking for someone that wanted to live between London and Asia as well. So
So how did you meet the two of you?
So we met on Bumble, online dating.
Yeah.
So it does actually work. Yeah. And it's and I'm so glad that I had that mindset shift. And you're right. I had this theory of abundance in work, but I wasn't using that theory of abundance in my own personal life.
And so when did you meet him?
So we met in October 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got the ability to travel the world with me. And so I feel, very, very fortunate, and, being very vulnerable and sharing that post in LinkedIn, especially because I think also maybe another thing that pushed me there was that so many people are it's just AI generated
all the time.
Articles, and there's no real, depth. And so I was like, well, if I share my story, I hope that it inspires some other people. And it was really beautiful to see how many comments actually came on that post. And people messaged me as well and said, thank you. That's really helped me. And now I know that, I can also change my mindset and have that shift.
Well, and you found someone who seems like he supports you being a powerful woman, right, in business.
Yes.
As well as being a world traveler and always kind of going and doing things. And because I know you do a lot of public speaking and just all kinds of things. So, yeah. And that you could have a partnership that sounds like it's more of equals, right?
Yes.
And a lot of partnerships are.
Yeah, and I think that's the really important thing. He actually was also raised by a single mum, and she had her own business. So and she was incredibly successful. And I think those things help as well. That understanding that life is a partnership, and there's many things that Paul helps me with that they're things that I just can't get my head around, and that's just been the beautiful thing about these last couple of years, and I look forward to hearing about other people's stories that have been inspired off me sharing that story too.
There was a book that I read years ago, but it's called The Round-Hilled Woman, and it was a woman in her 60s who and it's a memoir. So it's a woman in her 60s who is divorced and hasn't dated for a while because she was raising the kids thing. Yes, and so she decides to put a personal ad in the New York Review of Books because she wants somebody who's literate and reads and likes cultural things like she does. And I believe she lived in Berkeley, or lived in Berkeley, California. And so she puts this ad in, and she gets responses from all kinds of guys, including one that she dates more than once who's 30 or around 30. And people are like, you can't go out with this guy, this guy could be your son. But she taught, and so the whole book is about that experience, about putting herself out there and meeting all these different people and finding out that she's more fascinating to other people than she thought, right? And that she has more to offer than she expected. And because I think there's a lot of times where women get kind of pigeonholed that even if they work full time, if they're a partner to somebody, they're still doing the majority of the house stuff or the majority of their kids stuff, and
Yes.
and trying to do all the work stuff too, right?
As well, yes, yeah. And it's two things I want to say there is one about, isn't it interesting when people tell you that you can't do something? And I'm very careful on the words when I'm speaking to other people. Obviously, I wasn't doing it to myself. That was my learning bit.
Yeah.
And that also the stereotyping as well. That combination between you can't do that because you're 60.
Yeah. And
it's such a limiting belief. And it kind of also reminds me when I first came to the Philippines and I go to networking events, whether it was professionally or something personally, the first question people would ask was, what brought your husband to the Philippines? And so I had to get used to that one. And that's, I don't think, we shouldn't tell people that you can't do something. It should be about inspiring and see, that's we come back to the ACE framework and empathy, like having empathy for people to understand that, all the different viewpoints. And that was, and circling back around, that was when my brother first asked me to move to the Philippines. The first thing I said was no, because I went, I can't do that. I'm a single mother. And then I went, hang on a minute, this could be a really great opportunity for my daughters to, learn more about other cultures and be more worldly and be more open-minded. And so then I started saying to myself, when I get to 70, I want to look back and have no regrets. Yeah. I would prefer to have given something a go and failed at it than getting later on in life and looking back and go, oh, I wish I had have given that a go.
Yeah. Do you have an ex-partner or somebody that you had to get permission for the kids to move with you?
Yes. Yeah, okay. I did. There's a story for another podcast.
Well, I just wondered if that was difficult or not to.
Yeah, it was
arrangement.
Yeah, it was difficult. It was challenging. I think it's a favorite saying I have is, I'm not telling you it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. And that's something that I say often.
And how long, when you and Paul got together, did it take you before you introduced him to your daughters?
I introduced them to my daughters really early on because they're in their 20s. And it's almost like, you know what, I don't want to waste a long period of time with you and you meet my daughters and they don't they don't like you. Like it was almost like,
wait a minute, was that going to be a deal breaker even if you were in love with a guy or like to
yeah, in some ways it would be. Like I have a very close relationship with my daughters. We are best friends and I value their opinions. And I know in many ways they're very mature for their age because they had to grow up quickly with, being a single parent family, living in other countries. It was, they experienced things at their age that, many of their friends didn't, living in a lockdown and when I say a lockdown, we actually had military guards outside our gated community. So, they really couldn't go anywhere. And that's, when you're teenage girls, that's really confronting to have to experience things like that. So, and I shared it in the story as well that Jessica had got into university in London. Bella wanted to go to the same university that she went to. We'd applied twice. We couldn't get her in, and it was I just casually made a comment to Paul about it, and he was like, "What do you mean you can't get her in? Is it okay if I give it a go?" And I was like, "Wow, this is a test." And I thought he was being a little bit overly confident. And anyway, he went through the process. He worked out what was wrong with her application and why we're getting all these different responses. And he got her into university, and she's doing so well, and she's absolutely loving it. And that was one of those beautiful moments of going, hey, that's what a partnership is about. It's not necessarily about the we talk about romance as being flowers and dinners out, and that's not what it's all about at the end of the day. It's the real life challenges that you can find someone that can help you with. And yeah, when both my girls met him, the very first thing they both said was, "He's a keeper, Mum." Yeah.
And after you got your youngest into the college she's probably his biggest fan. So
Yeah, she is actually. Sometimes I feel like they're gang up against me.
oh no.
In a good way. Yeah, in a good way.
So what's one word of advice or a few words of advice that you would give to another woman who's, maybe older and hasn't really found the relationship she thinks is her ideal relationship?
If you can dream it, you can create it. 100%. And so
when anything else, right? Just like business, it's
just like anything. I think that's especially, this is actually a really good point, is to stop and think about, look what I could create in my business and in my family, if you've already got children, and celebrate that success. Write down what you're looking for in a partner. Look at that and go, am I that person? And that creates that shift. And then you have to put yourself out there. It's just like business. You write a goal for the year, but then you stop and go, well, what are the OKRs or the KPIs that I'm going to do to hit that goal? And we need to do the same thing in our personal life. And it all starts from believing that you are worthy of it, and that you can have it, and that you can create it. And I've met many women who have got dating coaches, for example, and I think that's a fabulous help to build up your confidence and get back out there and put boundaries around dating as well. That you're not doing it just to find someone and settle. You're doing it. You're happy with your own life first of all, and then you're finding that partnership, and that's that beautiful added bonus to share life with someone.
Well, and it's just like your goals that you set for the year. If your goals don't really align with your value or what you find to be valuable, they're not going to do. It's going to be the same thing when you're dating. If you're just dating to try to get a partner, it's not going to work. Right.
Yes.
It's not the scattershot approach of, but let's be honest about who I am and know who you are, very much so.
And don't apologize for it. I think that's the important thing. I think back years prior where I thought, I have to make this decision. Like, do I keep going with my career, or do I stop and then I'll find a partner? And do you know what? Had I done that, I would never have found the right partner for me, and I would never have been truly happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. I won't speak for you, but I think people go through that, right? They think this is what I should have, as opposed to waiting until it's the right everything, timing and
timing. Yes. Yeah.
And understanding and maturity level and growth and everything else that we go through as humans, to make the timing right.
Right. Yeah. And listening to other people's well-intended but often not great advice on what you should do. I've got a friend who's dating someone much younger, and I know that there can be that negative comments and that stereotyping. And I actually said to this friend, I said, I'm really happy that you've met someone so much younger, because I can see a change in you. Like, you're getting out and about, and you're doing healthy things. You're getting back to the gym, you're playing paddle, you're doing hot and cold contrast therapy, and you look alive. Like, you're not just 100% work. And I think, if you focus on the good things as opposed to focusing on the stereotypes and the negatives, and it's important for us to help others when they're on that journey.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for getting up nice and early in the morning, because I know we started at 6 a.m. your time. Um, but I really appreciate you taking the time and being on the show and sharing from your life with us and about your business. And it's been so
Oh,
great
Jill,
talking to you.
thank you as well. And thank you for creating a space of sharing these stories, because I think it's great to encourage other people, and you're helping leave a beautiful legacy as well, that, people are focusing on having that conversation, of focusing on, love and joy and peace and the theory of abundance. And we need more of it.
We do. I agree.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay.
Have a
Thanks, Jill.
wonderful day. Bye.
Excellent. Okay. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.